If you are watching this video, you are not going to want to go anywhere because these two women have just such powerful stories.
They knew that these doctors are dangerous.
You don't know something's wrong unless you're the one, you're throwing yourself and your story out there.
How do you ladies think the experience of the Latina woman fits into the maternal health conversation? Thank you for joining us for another powerful episode. However, for those of you who have experienced medical trauma or any act of violence in the past, this conversation may be triggering for you. And though we want you to hear the important conversation, we want you to prioritize your mental health. So if at any point you feel triggered by the conversation, please pause the video, step away, and return if and only if it is safe for you to resume. So I am honored. When I say honored, I'm truly honored to have both of you here to sit with me this evening to discuss this very, very important topic. And actually, probably a lot of people don't know that May is Latina Maternal Health Awareness Month. So the fact that we're even sharing that is probably going to be epic for a lot of people. But I wanted to specifically speak with you two advocates, and I would say trailblazer, because you guys are literally blazing the path to save lives. And I just wanted to really be able to have the sit down time period to talk about your stories, because I think your stories are not only impactful, and I'm thankful for your bravery to share your stories, but I think your stories are life changing. And I have no doubt that our viewers are going to feel the same as they listen to just the bravery in which you share your stories. So Tracy, I remember I virtually met you probably 2019, 2020 at the start of the pandemic. And I remember seeing stories about your daughter, Demi, on social media that eventually led either you to me or me to you. I don't know how it happened, but I'm glad that it did. And we had the most powerful discussion sharing about Demi's experience, and we'll talk about the condition that she was diagnosed with or later found to have, and how you've taken her legacy and just trailblazed with it. So Tracy, I'm so impressed that you took her story and your experience, and you took that pain and you've turned it literally into, just when they tell you beauty for ashes, this is truly truly a story that reflects beauty for ashes. And so I'm glad that you are here now as founder of Save a Mom, Save a Family Foundation. So I am so happy to hear that now, as the founder of Save a Mom, Save a Family, that you have expanded your territory and is doing so much work in this particular area of maternal health care. Thank you because of that, I was introduced to this other amazing lady here, Kimberly Turbin, our maternal health advocate extraordinaire, who has a very impactful story. So let's start off with Latina Maternal Health Awareness Month. Why did we need it? Why was it necessary? Help us understand, what is the goal of this awareness month?
Well, the goal is the awareness month is after losing Demi, and I thought it was just my family, going through a tragedy. I started to realize that there was more Latinas in my community dying. And so I did a little bit of research and I went to some resources and I found out that there was no resources for Latinas. And I thought that was kind of odd. And so that kind of sparked, me to start researching more and seeing, that we have quite a few Latinas that are dying that just don't have a voice. And especially here in my community, there was one before Demi and one after Demi. It was Celeste Ortiz before Demi and Sabrina De La Rosa after Demi. And it was just like, what's happening? What's going on? And that's how it all started. It was just researching that there wasn't that much resources out in our community.
Isn't that something? And, we're talking about one of the fastest growing populations in the US, with estimated to be 28%, I believe, by the year 2060. So to hear that there's such an underrepresentation in terms of resources is really mind-blowing. Kimberly, share with us, how is the experience of the Latina woman different in the US? What's unique about your experience?
I would say what's unique about our experience, first of all, we have a whole identity issue. A lot of times we ourselves, we don't know what to write. You know what to ask. Are you Pacific Islander? Are you Native? Are you white? Are you Black? Are you Cuban? Or are you Mexican, Latino? A lot of us, we don't even know how to answer that question. We've always been like, well, I don't know what I am. So that for one, it always crossed my mind, and I was never understood what should we put to be 100% obvious. I try to put indigenous or like Alaskan because I just assume I'm from here and I've never been anywhere else. But I also know that our
Listen,
people,
you just said a whole lot of that statement.
yeah, and our
Some people
people,
don't know the history that you're referring to.
Right.
I don't know. And
That
then
this is stolen land.
it's all of that, and then in addition to that, we have a lot of people that do live in the US that don't fill out census, that don't fill out paperwork. So I think everything about us is just, it's kind of sad because it's like we don't have a true identity. It's hard. So the first time that I heard our language, like which we speak, it's called Nahuatl. That's our original language, I think. And so when I hear the dialect or I hear it, like to me, it's like my ancestors are talking to me. So that's where I was always searching for our people. So that's kind of what pushed me in this direction, I think, honestly, a long time ago.
Wow, wow. How do you ladies think the experience of the Latina woman fits into the maternal health conversation? Because in during the pandemic, the big sort of shockwave that went across the nation was the experience of the Black woman, the fact that Black women have such a triple higher rate than white women when it comes to the maternal health conversation in terms of adverse outcomes. But the Latina woman wasn't really a part of that conversation. So where does the maternal health experience fit in this whole conversation that is oftentimes Black or white?
I think that, I mean, we're taught not to say anything, to keep our heads down, mind our business, we don't have a voice. And so we do have a voice, and we need to speak out that we are also being harmed. And women, Latino mothers, matter, because there's quite a few, like you said, where it's a growing popular, we're growing, our popularity is growing, and it's just a culture that we are just really just not being heard unless we are putting it on social media.
Yeah, I mean, one of the stats that really surprised me, in not a good way, was the fact that prior to the pandemic, the maternal outcomes for Latino women were actually better than white women, and had been for over a decade. And then the pandemic hit, and we know all of the disparities that happened as a result of the pandemic. And now that has swapped. And now, so Latina women are now having a higher rate of adverse outcomes when it comes to maternal health compared to non-Hispanic white women. What do you attribute? I think it's COVID. But do you have other thoughts in terms of why that switch happened?
Well, the data that we got from Michelle Montserrat Ramos, which is an advocate and also works for Consumer Watchdog. Basically, we have a maternal mortality crisis across the whole state of California that we're noticing now after the pandemic. But the epicenter of that is the Central Valley, which is like Bakersfield, Kern County. So that's the highest, and the rates have gone up, and even for infant maternal death.
Why is that? What's different about Central Valley that makes the rates so much higher?
I think it's that they only have access to these certain doctors that are not being taken off through the Medical Board of California.
And Kimberly, you have a personal experience with an example of that with a doctor that had a history of not giving good care and was still allowed to practice and resulted in your trauma. Can you share with us a little bit about what happened?
Yes. Well, I gave birth in 2013 in Tarzana, California, which is like the San Fernando Valley, Los Angeles. I didn't meet my OB until the day before. I never saw an obstetrician. I was getting care at Proyecto del Barrio in Canoga Park, California. And I only saw him for 10 minutes. I don't remember him looking at me in the face or anything like that. And then the next day I went into labor. And I told the hospital that I was a patient that had a sexual trauma before. Mm-hmm. And so I told them, like, if my PTSD does act up, I'm just letting you know that's what it is. So like, I don't care what you guys do to me. You just have to tell me what you do before you touch me, because you cannot just touch me. I start like freaking out. And they said, okay. So they gave me some medication to calm me down. Mm-hmm. And then they gave me Pitocin or whatever. And then basically I caught my whole assault and battery on camera. And the doctor told me, he came in the room with scissors ready to cut. He said, we're going to do an episiotomy. And I said, no, we haven't even tried pushing yet. And he said, okay, like, we're doing an episiotomy. He's sitting down there, and then he,
so there was a plan for an episiotomy before you had even started to push?
Yes, because I have it on camera. He walks in with his scissors ready to cut me. That was his plan. And we had woke him up out of his sleep. I remember it clearly because after that I went silent. He cut me. I was like, whatever. I couldn't have a reaction. I couldn't cry. I lost the whole moment.
Were you given anesthesia?
Yes, I was. I was given the epidural.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So then after that, the next day they asked me what happened, what was wrong. And then I told them, I didn't like how that went. Like, he totally like disrespected me or whatever. And so after that, I put my video on YouTube to try to get a reaction, just to come and see like what's the deal. Mm-hmm. Like, why did he do that? And I asked him for pain medication, and he told me no. At that point, I couldn't even really walk or sit down or go number 2. I had to change my whole diet into eating fiber or greens. I had a NutriBullet that I would have to blend and drink. So then he just denied the pain meds. And then I went to go get my medical records because I was curious of like what happened to me. When I saw my video, I just couldn't believe that he cut me 12 times. And so after that, the medical records people were like, I told them who my doctor was, and they're like, well, yeah, that's how he is. And I said, wait a minute.
So the medical record staff were very much familiar with his line of practice.
They knew exactly how he was and how he was practicing, which I was like, how do you guys even know who he is? And in my medical records, it said that I gave birth to a baby that had died, and they wrapped the baby and put it in my arms with me and a husband. I was like, I don't have a husband. And my baby didn't die because I was wearing my baby on the baby DeJourne. So that had to file an addendum to fix my medical records. And then when I read my medical records, it says in my medical records that I refused the treatment, but that he did it to me anyways. That's what he wrote. He was that bold. And he said that there was no medical necessity.
Wow. So
I have those.
He admittedly documented.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah. So wow.
I asked for an apology. I asked to meet with the people at the hospital. I asked for an apology. I don't remember if I met with her or not. Her name was Lauren. I don't remember if I met with her. But I remember they told me, honestly, just sue him. You're not really going to get an apology from us. I said, what do you mean sue him? Like, sue him? I was like, I just wanted him to apologize for cutting me. They said no. So then I went to the courthouse. I went to the police station. I filed criminal charges against him because at that point I was like, whatever. And so I did that.
What made you decide to do that? Help us understand what the difference is between the two options, whether it's medical malpractice and negligence versus filing a police report.
Yes. So with my case, because I put my video on YouTube, I was telling my family, because my mom and my family were telling me kind of like to get over it. That's what happens in birth. You know, you have a healthy baby. And I'm like, but I don't think I could get over that because I can't walk. So I don't know, whatever. And then so I said, okay, I'll do this. I'll put my video on YouTube. And if people tell me that I'm crazy and to get over it, I'll take it off YouTube. But the video kind of went viral, and people all over the world were wondering, why do we do birth like this in the United States of America? And everyone went crazy. And then I was reached out by birth advocacy groups that were kind of bringing into the media 10 years ago about obstetric violence. And somebody finally said, I think it was Don Thompson from Improving Birth and Kristen Pescucci from Birth Monopoly. They were like, somebody one day is going to catch their assault and we're all going to be able to see it. And that was my video. That's what my video shows, a real assault and battery and what happened, so that we're not crazy. So because I caught it on video, I got to see that that's like everything went down super crazy. And so that's why I discovered obstetric violence. Anyways, the reason why we didn't want to take it to court as malpractice or negligence is because I never cared about the money. And the women all over the world, what was the whole thing that we had? We advocated for each other and we raised money all together to find me a lawyer to sue specifically for assault and battery. And so when we went to court, when I filed my lawsuit without a lawyer. It was pro se. I paid $500 at the Los Angeles courthouse. And then later on, I found a lawyer. I raised money and I said, this is not about the money. We could raise money online and we don't care. This is about accountability. And so I did my medical board complaint as well. And they spoke to me, but at the end, he had surrendered his license to the medical board. He said he just wasn't fit to practice anymore. And then when I went to court, the judge was whether to decide if I filed my case correctly or incorrectly. And he said that this was, in fact, medical battery.
So that is a term that's going to shock people because a lot of people have never heard that term before. And you know, given the fact that it's a violent act, right? It's an act of violence. And given the fact that you had a history of violence in the past, how did you process this experience? How are you the strength of the woman that we're seeing before us today? How did you get there?
Well, when I met Dr. Abazi, it was at Proyecto de Barrio. And that word alone, that whole thing is, everyone that goes there doesn't normally speak English. So he was hurting a bunch of Mexican girls that couldn't speak up. He was hurting Russian girls that couldn't speak up, Indian girls that didn't speak English, a lot of people that just didn't speak English. And I said, because I was born here and that I'm very strong, that I would make it my business to be the voice of my people. Really, that's what it came down to. And I knew I just had the power, and that I had a lot of advocacy groups and a lot of women behind my back that were just never heard about their story. And so I just knew that it was something that had to be done, and I just went ahead and did it. I mean, it sucks. It traumatized me during the deposition. They did depose, and what they did in my deposition that people don't also hear, that's going to be shocking and disgusting, is that they subpoenaed my rape records from Santa Monica Rape Center, and they read them to me and said that I consented to my own rape. So that could be done too.
And that is why a lot of women share that and don't file charges and don't proceed with legal proceedings, because they feel re-traumatizing, because our system lacks empathy when it comes to victims of violence. So it's just it's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing. So how are you utilizing? I know that you mentioned that you were in a documentary and shared your story in a documentary also. Can you share with us the name of that documentary?
Yes, it's called The Born Free Film. It's produced and written by Paula Goldstein. She is a woman that is not from America. She's from the UK, or she's English. She's from Britain. And she came to the US and was like, what is going on, when she researched birth. So her movie is about, researching birth and finding out all these things.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's amazing. Tracy, you too have found a way of utilizing the painful experience that you've gone through to save moms and to really be the voice of lots of just about every mom that's out there. Can you share with us Demi's story and Malachi's story?
Well, kind of like the same thing, when Demi started having symptoms, she went to the local hospital, and she came and they ignored her. They ignored every symptom. She told the person, it was in front of a desk of people, and she walked into labor and delivery, and there was a man in scrubs at the time. We didn't know who he was. And she, told her symptoms. And again, they blamed it on Mexican food. And so she went into, her triage, and then they said, "Oh, you have high blood pressure. We're going to evaluate you for a little bit." And so they did. They took some blood work and found protein in her urine. And, she proceeded to tell the nurse all her symptoms, what was going on with everything. And they watched her. And then about 5 o'clock, they were coming in, they're changing shifts and doing all their stuff. But they just didn't value her. They didn't listen to anything. They didn't take any of her symptoms seriously. She voiced that she couldn't breathe and voiced that she had some vision issues, but nothing, no doctor went to see her. The state came in and we did a full investigation, and they proceeded to no doctor visit was seen. She was never touched by a doctor, never, examined. They found out there was no protocol followed by the hospital, and nothing, absolutely zero. She was supposed to be there at 23 hours. She was there 12, and no diagnosis, absolutely no diagnosis. So she literally, they let her go home to die. And that's what happened. She came home, and she had a seizure and passed away. And so I advocate, because I know that this was preventable. And then, after going through the medical board, medical records, researching night after night, looking for answers like, how did this happen? We found out that one of the doctors, both doctors, but one of them especially, had been harming women in our community for over 25 years, a repeat offender. And they continue just to give him probation. And the 2017 death of Celeste Ortiz, probation. They promised me that we were going to go to court. I was subpoenaed, and I was ready, had the day off, everything was in place. And then I get a phone call from the DAG, and he said that they offered him a deal. They let him go on retirement and health reasons. So there was no justice for Demi, absolutely zero from the medical. There was no protection, first of all, from the medical, because like Kim was saying, everybody in this community knew this doctor was dangerous. It's a small community. Bakersfield is small. Doctors all work at the same hospital. So they know this doctor, both doctors, and nobody says anything.
Why do you think people don't say anything? Like, why do you think it's such a why are we so comfortable with watching each other hurt and die and have these just horrific experiences? Why are we so comfortable as a community, whether it's in Bakersfield or just name the number of communities across the US where women are dying from childbirth related complications that were ultimately preventable, and with these repeat offenders? And I think that's what stands out with both your stories, is the fact that the reputation of these doctors were known. And I would definitely say it's odd even to have a doctor talk about other doctors. Like, somehow that's just not acceptable in our community or in our culture. What would you say to other clinicians that are witnessing these things but not saying anything?
To answer the beginning of your question, only people on the internet were telling me something was wrong. The people in my real life, my family, my friends, my aunts, they were like, that's normal. You're okay. Get over it. So you don't know something's wrong unless you're the one, you're throwing yourself and your story out there, because you know that you're not crazy.
Right. And for me, once it hit the media in my town, and everybody started commenting on the social media. In one of the comments, there was a young lady who reached out to me. She's probably 25. She said, "Thank you for doing this. Thank you, because he killed my mom 25 years ago, and my grandma can't even speak about it to this day." And she just thanked me and told me it meant a lot.
Unbelievable. Something Kimberly said really really caught my attention, was the fact that you mentioned that the doctor that violently attacked you had attacked other women who were non-bilingual. Do you think being an immigrant brings a new level of vulnerability? Or why do you think that those women were particularly targeted?
Well, I know that they were targeted because he was suspended from Tarzana Hospital, but they wouldn't tell me why. And he was fired from Proyecto del Barrio for treating the women bad. This is not my opinion. This is a fact, that he was.
What would you say to women who are immigrants, who may feel more vulnerable because of lack of resources, or not feeling like they have a voice, not feeling like they will be heard? Because all of these experiences are, when I speak to other women who have similar experiences, the one thing that's consistent is women not feeling like they're heard. So what would you say to someone who may have had an experience like this?
It's a lot of work to get into the US. And I think like once you're here,
Oh, you're right.
it's like you can't, it's hard to that doctor just really, he was, the reason he acted the way he did is because he was allowed to act that way. And
Right.
that's sick.
Right.
Are there
Well,
resources? Are there resources or support for women who feel victimized, who may be in vulnerable communities, that they can reach out to?
I feel like it's just us.
Right. Yeah.
Wow.
I do
Because
too.
people ask me like, why do I do what I do? Or why don't I get paid for what I do? I swear to God, I was just having this conversation with Tracy. Like, I do this because I feel like God chose me to do this, because this is one of those jobs that is like nobody's, unless we're advocating for each other, nobody's, it's hard. It's like it doesn't exist.
Right.
It's like we don't even, it's really sad.
Why does America not care about moms?
That's my question. Why don't we care about each other and moms? Moms are supposed to be honored and valued. How did we get to this place in United States of America when we do not value mothers?
Yes.
Of every color.
We will value the spending and pretending that we care about mothers. We will
Right.
value that. We will spend thousands of dollars on Mother's Day. And I'm not saying not to celebrate moms. I'm just saying it's just interesting where we put our value. We'll spend all that money, but then when we turn around, we don't have enough money to support moms through pregnancy, and to give moms doula services, and to give them advocates, and to give them support groups, and to care for moms after the most important thing in life, giving life. It's just really, it's really mind-blowing just how warped the thinking is of the culture, and then to find out that it takes grassroots, it takes these experiences. And it's sad that, yes, you guys are doing amazing work and are really helping so many women out there, but I wish that you didn't have to do that through your own pain, and yes, God can use all that is us, our good, our bad experiences, and turn them into good. But it's just heartbreaking to hear your stories and so many thousands other stories of women who are having similar experiences.
It's like if I wear Demi's shirt, like if I have a shirt and I'm walking to the store, or they'll immediately say, I heard her story. And then I feel like that's one person. As long as one person hears me,
right?
But they relate her picture to her story more than just saying, if I talk about preeclampsia, they're like, but when they see her face and Malachi's face, then they're like, oh, okay. It's like it clicks a little bit more with them. Right. And that's why it's so important that we have a face, and I am her face, and Kimberly is violence, and
Mm-hmm.
it's so important because sometimes they don't get it. And I
Right.
don't know what it is, but once you put the face to the story, it
Mm-hmm.
tugs at their heart. And I tell everybody I meet, I tell people on the street, I tell people on the phone, just
Mm-hmm.
so that they could understand that she was a person, an educated person,
Mm-hmm.
smart, beautiful, smart, had everything going for her. I raised her to do everything a mother raises their child to do.
Mm-hmm.
And she did it. And then to walk into a system and be failed by everybody, the
Yeah.
justice system, the medical system, the medical board.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's been almost pulling teeth to get them to hear me and have
Mm-hmm.
Malachi. They could care less about Malachi. He doesn't even they don't even want to deal with him because they call him a fetus, and he was a 5-pound baby, so he can't even get a
So
case.
but Malachi was born, right?
Yes. I'm
So
fighting right now the osteopathic medical board right now
uh-huh.
for him to have a case because they consider him a fetus, and
But he can't
they
be a fetus if he was born. And
it's so much.
oh
I mean, as a death
wow.
certificate of
Yeah,
a birth
the
death certificate.
medical. Yeah.
Wow.
And
Wow.
then okay, so I say if he's a fetus, I mean, then we can go into Roe versus Wade.
Ah,
People.
listen, Tracy. Listen, I was just about to go there. Like,
Yeah.
it's just so mind-blowing how inconsistent the logic is.
Yeah.
Like, it works in that situation, but then it doesn't work in my situation. Like,
Right.
if we are now heading towards the reversal of Roe versus Wade on the ground, on the basis of the humanity of a quote unquote fetus, then that means my defense works in a sense that that still applies to my case, right?
Right. Exactly.
That's yeah, that's in woof.
And I don't even think Roe versus Wade knows. I mean, they would jump all over it. They don't even want to give Malachi a case because he's a fetus, but it makes
Right,
no sense. Makes
right,
absolutely
right.
no
And
sense.
that really tells you what the who the law was really intended to, like, it had nothing to do really with the care of women, but that's a whole other conversation.
Right.
But Tracy, to your point, are we improving the education on preeclampsia? Are we getting better?
I think we're getting better telling our story, and they're getting it. But as far as hearing women learning in the office with their doctor and their own OBGYNs,
Uh-huh.
absolutely not. Because half the time people say, well, what is preeclampsia? So
Still.
still to this day. And I think it needs to be when you find out you're pregnant, you need to
Mm-hmm.
take a class and be educated and say, if these symptoms come up, or something, you need to call me, you need to be concerned. These are the
Mm-hmm.
5 things to look out for. Or even like her story for 5 seconds in a room of pregnant women,
Mm-hmm.
they're like, oh man, I have that. I thought that was just from me working out too much, but I feel the
Right.
shortness of breath, or that's not
Mm-hmm.
normal. I think that something that simple could save a life.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I completely agree with you with that. And it's really mind-blowing because I will definitely tell you, I spend a lot of time talking about preeclampsia in the office just simply because I work with populations that are adversely affected by preeclampsia. And still, you every now and then you do have patients who have the symptoms and don't seek help because there's an I don't know what the correct term is, but kind of a minimizing of symptoms. Like
Yes.
you feel the shortness of breath, but maybe it's not that bad. Maybe it's just me. I can't really breathe, but maybe it's not that bad. Maybe it's all pregnancy related. I'm having a headache, but maybe it's not that bad of a headache. I don't want to make a big deal. Do you think that women oftentimes that we are afraid to speak up or to seek help when we really need help?
I think a little bit of both. I think that they in their brain, oh no, it can't happen to me. Oh no, that's not happening. I think
Mm-hmm.
that a little bit of both. I think like with Demi, he asked her, um, like kind of body shamed her for eating Mexican
Mm-hmm.
food. So then
Mm-hmm.
she thought, well, I did it maybe to myself.
So
So he
self-blame.
embarrassed her in front of everybody
Wow.
and stuff like that. So I think that was the first part.
So where do you ladies want to see, what do you want to see change? Like, what are some practical, because, sometimes, especially when we're doing advocacy work, we can fantasize about what we want the endpoint to look like, but we want people to have these practical goals. What is a practical goal that we can have?
My goal is to pass this obstetric violence course that Birth Monopoly offers, honestly, to doctors, physicians, and nurses or any staff. And for them, kind of like when you are in a car accident, you're forced to see those things at a DUI class. Like we really need them to see that this is not okay. And then we're heading in a direction where this generation is like they're all gonna stick up and say something. And I think these doctors, nurses, and their staff,
Mm-hmm.
they're gonna get hit with this one way or another. So they need to be watching and you know
Yeah,
do this generation is going to do what you said. They're going to do their chain of command. They're going to tell on each other. They're going to advocate. They're going to put videos on TikTok. They're going to blast it on YouTube. And it is what it is. They're going to have to
right,
face the reality of it. Yeah.
right.
The world is changing.
I mean, doesn't it blow your mind? Does it blow your mind that this is medicine in the US? Are you shocked that this is what women's care is like in the US?
Uh,
It's sad.
yeah, it's sad. But like, I was working in a cell phone store, and a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times I saved multiple people, from really crazy things, but I actually saved somebody's life. There's a girl that is going to start speaking out against the Medical Board of California because she came in right after having a baby, and I noticed that she couldn't breathe. And I told the husband, look, I'm not crazy or anything. You guys do whatever you want, but your wife's supposed to breathe after coming home from a C-section. And they didn't ignore me totally, but when they got home, she passed out. She went to the hospital, she died, and I had to bring her back to life. And she came back to speak to me and said that I saved her life.
Wow.
And now she's gonna start making a complaint against the Medical Board of California because they sent her home after 1 day of having a C-section because of the monkey virus outbreak. I
Ooh.
know.
I mean, every
Yeah.
time you hear these stories, it really like, you have to kind of realize these are real stories. These are people's
Yeah.
lives. And it's the fact that even though with the exposure that these things are still happening, and we're not talking about, sometimes people are thinking, oh, this is in the South where they stereotype the backwards culture, or this is, in the Midwest or in rural areas where people don't know any, but these are like major cities where people are still having these experiences. Tracy, what's your goal for women's health? Like, where do you want to see this going?
I want to see it going where every woman's treated equally, and no matter what insurance they have, and that has a big part, the insurance, because I have another daughter who just had a baby, and she had different insurance, and she got better care. She had two doctors in a hospital that actually listened more to her, and her outcome was the opposite of Demi's, of course,
Wow.
and that's not fair.
Right.
And because when you hit hard times, you have to get on state help and lose your life for it, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And so I think that has a part that needs to be changed.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely needs to be looked at,
Mm-hmm.
because everybody should be treated equal, and we should have all the same resources, and we should honor mothers. But to me, if I can save one mother at a time, like you said, then it will get there. It'll eventually get there, but we just got to keep saying our story, which is very mentally hard for us. It's
Mm-hmm.
not an easy road saying the same thing over and about, Damian Malachi, or Kim's story or Sabrina's story or
I was
Celeste's
going to ask you
story.
ladies about that because each time you're sharing your story, you're reliving it, right? So you're reliving it so many times to help others, but people sometimes don't realize that you relive it every time you tell the story.
Yeah, and the pain's the same. It doesn't go away. And what's so hard about it is like
Mhm.
for us also is Malachi, he doesn't, nobody valued little Malachi, and he does have a big story, and they weren't prepared for him at the hospital here. They wasted time. We don't have a unit for, we're not, equipped for trauma like that. So
How far was she in the pregnancy?
she was 32 weeks.
Now, 32 weeks preterm births, they tend to do pretty well.
Yes. And
But
I
I
knew
guess
that
you're right,
because I
that
had,
hospital has to be equipped. But most hospitals that aren't equipped usually have a plan or a protocol to care
they,
for.
they were running around with crazy. They had no, there was no preparation.
And there was no protocol to quickly transfer.
He stayed there and wasted time, and then finally got to Madeira 18 hours, probably 17 hours later, and he died
Wow.
18 hours later. Yeah.
And this is 2019, so that people understand that we're not talking about that long ago. Um, wow. So if a woman feels that she has experienced some type of trauma with her childbirth experience, what do you say to that person who has not spoken up? What can she do to advocate for herself?
I talk to a lot of different women, and a lot of different women have a lot of different choices, and they all choose different. So I speak to some that say they cannot speak out, but they'll write to me and say that thank you for me doing it. We have some that said, you know what, I do want to do something about it. What should I do? And then I kind of walk them down to the tips that I know of what to do, or I teach them how to conserve their lawsuits without having an attorney, because it's really hard to find an attorney for these type of things in California or anywhere, I guess. Um, and then some just need some help. So I would just let them know that if they were like battered, that they could potentially have vulvodynia, which is the medical condition that I have. And to go about that, you go to your gynecologist and you ask for a referral to the urogynecologist or the and ask them to write you a prescription for pelvic floor therapy. Those are
Listen,
things that I've learned.
Dr. Tracy, who is on this platform with me, who's a pelvic floor therapist, would appreciate the fact that you said that. She would echo you. Yes. But you're so right. And vulvodynia, for those people who may not be familiar with it, do you want to describe what that's like?
Yeah, vulvodynia is something that I feel like we just didn't care about women once again, and we lumped everything into one category, which means vulvar pain.
Yeah, yeah. And you're right. Vulvodynia is probably one of the hardest conditions to treat
Yeah.
because we just don't know enough about it. You're 100% right. We don't know enough about it because we need more funding to do research to evaluate these conditions that are specifically a woman's experience. And you know how I talk about funding with women's health. But yeah, Tracy, what would you say for women, especially in the Central Valley area? What can they do if they feel that they have had some type of traumatic experience medically related?
I think, like Kimberly says, they're going to have to get their medical records and really go over them, and it's really hard, and it takes a lot of time, and to write out the complaint properly, line by line, because they'll throw it out if it's not, and to research their doctors, and really, it's not a lot of resources. You really kind of got to find your own, and it's not out there, to how to get help. Like Kimberly said, it's hard to get attorneys,
Mm,
it's extremely hard. You just get failed like everywhere. You just really, really get failed. And most women give up. And then
Yeah.
they give up, and then they just take it, and then we don't talk about it anymore.
How do they heal? Even if they give up in terms of the legal aspect, how do they heal from this?
I don't think you'll ever heal.
I don't think you could heal. I mean, with the trauma from this, honestly, you would have to seek out more different types of therapies that aren't like modern medicine, honestly.
Mm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There are growing, to your point, Tracy, they're growing a, a tiny bit growth. We're not that far, but a few platforms that will help people find a good doctor. Specifically, I know the ones that give you a directory for Black doctors.
Mhm.
Do you have the same thing? Have you come across the same thing for the Latinx population in terms of knowing secure and safe doctors that women can go to for help?
Oh, absolutely not. No, we don't have
The
that.
Earth
So
app
there
is
you
the only
go.
thing that I've seen that came out.
Yes, the Earth
Is that
app.
what you're, yeah.
Yes,
Is
the
that
Earth
from
app is
Kimberly
one.
Seals? Kimberly
Yes,
Seals
yeah.
Ellers?
And
I
there are
have
a
her
couple
book.
other apps, and I'm gonna list them all below in the content of this video. But here we go. That's an opportunity. So for those of you out there who are wondering, how can I contribute to this cause? We need an app, or we need inclusion in the current apps so that we have also, for especially our non-bilingual speaking communities,
Yes.
the ability to go to safe clinicians, whether it's a
Mhm.
nurse practitioner, an MD, a DO, just safe clinicians who are trauma informed clinicians, right?
In our culture, a lot of people don't speak out.
That's a shift though for you to do what you're, and I'm so glad you said that, because I do think people don't really understand the context in which you're doing what you're doing. It is a shift for your culture, for
Yes.
people, for women especially, to speak out in terms of these experiences. But it's important that people feel that they deserve and are worthy of good care. It doesn't matter who you are, where you came from. If the next lady next door can have good care, guess what? I deserve good care too. And it doesn't matter who you are, what your history is, what your culture is. If somebody can have good care, I can have good care too. And altogether, we need to make sure that all women of color, of all ethnicity, of all races get better care in the United States. And for those of us on the clinician side who are trying to give better care, we need more support. There's
Yeah.
not enough of us doing this. There's not enough of us working to improve the care of women. And when we try to improve the care of women with even just the simplest things of, I need more time to see her.
Right. Exactly. And it's so hurtful because in my culture,
Mm-hmm,
I reached out to Latina doctors,
mm-hmm,
no response. And that's hurt me a lot. That really did hurt me. And I thought, wow. And that's where we have to make the change, is to acknowledge it. To acknowledge it will make some change. But like I said, I ran into Demi's doctor as she was growing up in high school. And I walked up to her because that's how I am now. Got a little
mm-hmm.
bit older because of this.
I love it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I introduced myself and I said, I'm Demi's mom. Do you remember me? Oh, yes, yes. And she goes, we failed her. And I cried all the way home
Mm-hmm. Why,
because
why was that so important to hear?
because they knew that these doctors are dangerous, but they didn't step up and
Mm-hmm.
or they just knew and let it go and no one did anything. But I didn't know how it felt. I felt
Mm-hmm.
hurt. I felt happy that they acknowledged it.
Mm-hmm.
At the same, it was a very mixed feelings, and then mad at the same time
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
like if you do care about mothers in your community, and we have a lot of Latina mothers dying here, then why don't you speak up?
I
What is
think,
the problem?
yeah, I think one of the things that Kimberly said, which really struck a chord with me, is the fact that it takes a lot to get here. And a lot of us, people of color who are in medicine, are immigrants, right? Either
Yeah.
first generation or we are immigrants. And so even as a clinician, you still have a lot to quote unquote lose. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of clinicians don't want to, because it's the first time, like they are oftentimes the breadwinner also for the family back home. right? You know, I may still have family in Mexico. I may still have family in the Caribbean. I may still have family in Africa. And so I try to walk this narrow line, stay on the low, so I can continue to be that breadwinner for our family. So our histories are so complex and our journeys are so, so very complex. But you're right. It's, you know, it's a risk. I'm not saying it's not a risk. It's a risk to speak up. It's a risk to be the different doctor or the doctor that is speaking up. Like, you do take a risk, and you are sometimes left alone. Like, you look around and there's no one else to stand there with you, even though people know what's going on. So it's a very hard journey, but I applaud what you ladies are doing. So Tracy, you had an amazing health fair this past weekend. Just a great representation of community come together for this purpose of saving moms. For people who want to support you and want to continue to follow your efforts, where can they find you?
Well, I have Save a Mom, Save a Family Instagram. I have Justice for Demi and Malachi Instagram, and I'm on TikTok. So
You're on
have them all. I'm everywhere. Yes, I'm on TikTok.
You surpassed me. I haven't even touched the tick or the talk.
You know what? TikTok reaches a lot of the younger girls, and that's what I'm reaching for.
So you're trying to reach the younger girls because you feel that that's really the area where we can make great impact, it sounds like.
I was really nervous at first. I was really nervous because TikTok is a lot of younger ones, but speaking to the 20-year-olds, the 18-year-olds, and even younger, if even junior high, if they allow me, I feel like if I can reach and let them see what happens to a family and the precautions of preeclampsia, that I can maybe save their mother's life, their sister's life, you know. So I really feel like educating the younger girls is important. It's becoming something I really found, like, you know what, if somebody might have said something when Demi was in high school or junior high, these symptoms she might have been aware of, you know. So you know, and the nursing facilities, Bakersfield College, I had an opportunity to speak to the nursing program, which I absolutely loved it. So I'm hoping I can do that at all the colleges, or anyone that's doing any kind of healthcare, because it just takes one person.
Yes, it really does. It really, one person can save that one life, just like Kimberly shared how she impacted and saved the life of that one girl. So never underestimate the power that we have to save each other.
We are making Latina Maternal Health Awareness Month of May a state day. It's on the Senate floor and it's going to get voted on. So soon to be, it will be throughout California, and all the communities can grow, and it can just grow from there.
I love it. Listen, if any state should recognize Latino women, it should be California, okay? And Texas, we coming at you too. So I think that's fantastic. Oh my gosh, that is such a great move. And the next goal is to make that national, right?
Yes. Oh, there we go.
Let's you already got that national. We're going to tag a few people to make that national. Oh my gosh, you women are so amazing. So what have you been up to now, Kimberly? Because I hear you're in documentaries, you're sharing your experience, and listen, paving the way. Like, do we need to roll out the red carpet? I think we do. Where can we find your documentaries?
Yes, you can find me on the Born Free film telling my story. And that's going to be on Amazon Prime, iTunes, and Tubi.
Awesome.
And then I'm also going to be in the Mother May I film, but that one hasn't come out yet. That's from Birth. So
we're going to wait for you to let us know when that film is out and where we can find that film as well. We're looking forward to supporting those films and other films like it. Keep us posted with all of your projects and anything that you have coming up. I appreciate you both. I've said it before, I can't say it enough. Thank you so much, because I do understand what it takes to share your story. So I just applaud you every time that you use that strength and that bravery to do so. And I am Dr. T, the hand behind the handle of HealthyBump.Club. We appreciate you for watching us this evening, for listening to these powerful stories. We empower you now to make a difference. If these women can do it, so can you. We need more people signing up to make a difference in the area of maternal health care, for our women of color, especially. We have the least resources. We're the least likely to share our stories. And so we need to be empowered by the masses behind us. It takes a village. And when you're done doing that, talking about village, make sure you hit us up on HBC Village for our apparel line. And when you're done with that, make sure you go ahead and support us through Apple Music. And when you're done with that, continue to watch all our other videos right here on YouTube under Healthy Bump Club. We thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys when the next episode.